Michelle's best friends, Paula and Rachel, didn't like Valentine's Day, but Michelle suspected it was simply because none of them had a beloved man to give them gifts and confess their love. Neither Paula nor Rachel were married yet. Their personal lives were not going well, even though they were quite attractive. Michelle sincerely wished them happiness and believed they would one day meet their ideal man, just like her Craig. She and Craig had been married for 5 years, and every day with Craig was a real holiday for Michelle. The only thing that overshadowed their joy was the absence of children. At first, they didn't worry about it because they were young, in love and happy together. A child didn't fit into their ideal world, and they were in no hurry to have one. But then Craig's family began to hint that they were waiting for a young addition. Craig Jennings came from a conservative family that honoured their ancestors' traditions and believed that a woman's main purpose in life was motherhood. "My dear, we are looking forward to the birth of our first grandson, the heir of the Jennings family," his mother said more than once. At first, Michelle tried to laugh it off. "And if it's a girl, what will you do? Will you give up your granddaughter?" Her mother-in-law's brow furrowed with concern. "What nonsense, Michelle. Of course we will love a granddaughter too. But understand, we need a successor to the family name, a new Jennings to take over the family business in the future." Such talk was strange and alien to Michelle. Why couldn't girls run a business? And how could you plan if it would be a boy or a girl? But she avoided conflict with vague excuses. Gradually, the hints about a grandson became more intrusive. When Michelle and Craig visited his parents for a traditional Sunday dinner, all the relatives would immediately scrutinize Michelle's figure. If someone thought she had gained a little weight, they would start congratulating her. "Craig, Michelle, you have finally decided to make us happy. What wonderful news." She had to explain, embarrassed, that there was no pregnancy, and then see the disappointed faces of her parents-in-law. Craig couldn't stand it any longer. "Michelle," he said to her one day, "why don't we really have a baby? Can you imagine how pretty and glorious they'll be? Just like you." Michelle smiled. Her husband's eagerness for a future child touched and moved her. "Isn't it a little early?" she asked doubtfully. "I just graduated from university. I wanted to look for a job, to realize myself in the profession." "Why would you want to do that?" Craig was genuinely surprised. "You got your diplomas, and that's enough. You don't have to work at all. I earn enough to provide for my family. My father's brothers and I have a successful, profitable company." "Well, it's not just about having enough money. I want to be independent, to feel like I'm worth something." "Nonsense," Craig said nonchalantly. "I already know you're a smart and good girl. Why do you have to prove anything to anyone? If you need more money, I'll gladly give you more." Michelle was embarrassed. "You already spoil me. I'm awkward. You spend so much on me." Craig frowned. "Awkward? Let those losers who can't provide their woman with everything she wants feel awkward. Believe me, I can afford it. So don't say no. You don't have to work. A woman's business is to keep the fire burning in the family hearth." "Yes, you don't even let me do the housework," Michelle laughed. "You hired a housekeeper for me." "Keeping the family hearth doesn't mean you have to crawl from morning till night with a mop and vacuum cleaner." Craig kissed his wife tenderly. "It's enough that you cook. You cook very well." In the end, Michelle gave in to her husband's entreaties and gave up the idea of working. Now she truly lived for her own pleasure. She went shopping, visited beauty salons, went to the pool and gym, took walks and met with friends. Everything was perfect in her life, except that for some reason she couldn't get pregnant. At first, Craig assured her there was nothing to worry about, and that everything would resolve itself. However, month after month passed, and the long-awaited pregnancy did not come. Michelle persuaded Craig to take tests, but the tests did not reveal any issues. "Relax and let the situation go," the doctor advised. "Everything will happen exactly when it's time." However, 1 year passed, then a second, then a third, and now Michelle and Craig celebrated their 5th anniversary of marriage, but they still had no children. Her husband's relatives began to look displeased. Michelle pretended not to notice these glances, but at night she bit her lips and cried with resentment. Was it her fault that she and Craig could not have a child? Sometimes a cowardly thought came into her head. What if he leaves me? What if he finds a healthy, fertile woman, and she gives him a bunch of babies? However, Michelle immediately shamed herself for such thoughts. Doctors didn't find any problems in her body, which meant the problem was not with her. So the only thing left to do was wait, hope, and believe. Michelle remembered that February the 14th for the rest of her life. All the stores, shopping centres, and even street stalls were covered with red roses, balloons in the shape of hearts, cute toy bears, and teddy hearts were sold everywhere. Craig had a lot of work to do at the office that day, so he and Michelle spent the holiday apart for the first time in 5 years. Michelle called her friends and invited them to a restaurant. It turned out that both Paula and Rachel were free that day, so they gladly accepted her invitation. While eating pasta with seafood and ravioli with cheese and spinach, drinking ice-cold Prosecco, the girls started an argument about Valentine's Day. Should it be considered a holiday? Paula and Rachel said it was not a holiday at all because true love does not require a special date on the calendar. Michelle argued that for loving people, it was just an additional reason to please their soulmate, and there was nothing wrong with that. "Then why are you sitting in a restaurant with us on such a wonderful and romantic holiday, and not with your precious Craig?" Paula asked wryly. Michelle didn't like her tone. It seemed her friend's eyes were gloating, as if she was glad Michelle was alone today. However, she forbade herself from thinking ill of Paula, and answered as calmly as possible. "Craig has a lot of work today. He is signing an important contract and will be in the office till evening. But don't worry about us," she said. "I'll make up for it tonight. I'll give him a romantic candlelit dinner, followed by an erotic massage." Paula grimaced as if she had been eating a lemon and defiantly covered her ears with her hands. "I don't want to know anything about it," she declared. "Be kind enough to keep those intimate details to yourself." Michelle saw that she was clearly upset, and therefore Michelle lowered her gaze to her plate and picked up a ravioli on her fork. Paula smelled of some sweet perfume, and suddenly Michelle felt nausea surging up in her throat. She clamped her mouth with a napkin, mumbled something incomprehensible, and spent in the restroom a quarter of an hour. When she returned to the table, Rachel asked worriedly, "How are you?" "I'm just a little unwell," Michelle said thoughtfully. Paula looked at her friend, squinting suspiciously. "Listen, are you pregnant by any chance?" "I don't know," Michelle muttered, afraid to believe it, lest she rejoice in vain. "I'll have to buy a pregnancy test and check. I'll probably go home, okay? No offense, but you can go on without me." Rachel looked genuinely upset, but Paula didn't even try to hold her back. On the way, Michelle bought several tests at once, and at home she rushed to the bathroom without even changing her clothes. All the tests, one after another, showed a clear and bold second stripe. There could be no more doubts. She would soon become a mum. Michelle sat on the bathtub rim, flooded with tears of joy, and could not believe what was happening. How happy she was! At first, she wanted to call her husband immediately to make him happy too. But then she rightly thought that such news should not be told by phone, but by looking straight into his eyes. Craig deserved to know it in person. But how could she wait until he returned from work in the evening? Suddenly it hit her. What if she surprised Craig? She should go straight to his office and make him happy. Michelle smiled dreamily, imagining how happy Craig would be. She hurriedly tidied herself up, changed her clothes, freshened her makeup, did her hair, spritzed some perfume on her wrist, and hailed a cab. Inside, everything was literally singing and exulting with joy. The cab was rushing her through the evening city. Michelle looked out the window, smiling absent-mindedly, and now and then put her palm to her still flat belly. The office was empty, only Craig's light was on in the window. Well, that was very like him. Staying up late when all the employees had long since gone home, and working until he was exhausted. All the better, they wouldn't be disturbed. The guard looked at Michelle with surprise. "I'm Mrs. Jennings," she explained. "Don't you remember me? I used to come here a lot." "I remember," said the dart, but his eyes were darting strangely. "Are you sure Mr. Jennings is waiting for you? Did you warn him you were coming?" "Actually, I am his wife." Michelle resented him. "I don't need to warn him and ask for permission. Let me through." And without giving the guard a second thought, she moved toward the elevator. Strange guy. I'll have to tell Craig about his unpleasant behavior, she thought. The elevator silently took her up to the 7th floor, where the office was located. Her heels rumbled down the empty corridor. Burning with impatience, Michelle pushed open the reception door and entered. The secretary's desk was empty, and the door to her husband's office was not completely closed, with a thin streak of light shining through from under it. Also, strangely, Michelle caught the muffled sounds of music, and it wasn't some kind of rock that Craig liked. No, it was some sweet romantic melody, which her husband always laughed at. Michelle also thought she heard a woman's laughter. A chill ran down her spine. For some reason she felt uneasy. She didn't understand, didn't realize what she was afraid of, but still, she froze in front of the door to her husband's study, afraid to open it. Finally, gathering her courage, she pushed the door open and entered. The sweet, almost cloying smell of perfume and champagne hit her nose, and Michelle realized that this perfume was familiar to her. Very familiar. Just a couple of hours ago, she had been at a restaurant with her friends, and Paula had smelled the same, that very same perfume. She focused her gaze on the couple in the office, who were so engrossed in each other that they hadn't even noticed Michelle's appearance. Her husband blissfully had his eyes closed, and on his lap, Michelle blinked a few times. Then she squeezed her eyes shut and opened them again. But the scene didn't disappear. Familiar blonde hair, a scarlet dress that opened up the back. She would recognize that hair out of 1,000. And the dress. This dress Michelle had seen on Paula at the restaurant. A wheeze or moan escaped from her throat, from helplessness and shock. Craig flinched and opened his eyes. The blonde on his lap looked back fearfully. It was indeed Paula. But Michelle refused to believe her eyes. How could it be possible? Could two of the nearest and dearest people hurt her so deeply? Could they betray her trust, her love, her friendship? Craig's eyes widened in shock at the sight of his wife, but in Paula's gaze there was a poorly concealed gloating and triumph. It was as if she were thrilled by the situation and happy that Michelle had caught them. "How could you?" Michelle squeezed out, unable to take her eyes off her husband's hand, which was still stroking Paula's thigh. The husband finally came to his senses a little. "Michelle," he said. "Michelle, I'll explain everything to you now. It's not what you thought." Paula, on the other hand, squinted sweetly, like a cat that had eaten a lot of sour cream, and purred languidly. "Happy Valentine's Day to you, dear friend." "Why, Paula? Why?" Michelle asked quietly. Paula squinted angrily. She no longer resembled a cat, more like a panther preparing to leap. "Why? Maybe because not all the best things should go only to you. You're not the navel of the earth, darling. You have to share what you have, especially if you've gotten it undeservedly." "Undeservedly? Share?" Michelle repeated in shock and disbelief. "Do you realize what you're saying? Was I supposed to share with you my own husband?" "Don't listen, Michelle." Her husband roughly pushed away Paula, who was still shamelessly burrowing against him. "Everything was not as she says. Don't believe a word she says. It's all her. I didn't mean it at all." Paula laughed tinklingly, as if silver bells were ringing. "But I could feel very well how hard you didn't mean it." "Shut up," Craig hissed, looking at her with hatred. "Shut up and get out of here, now!" "Wow!" Paula was frankly amused. "And only 5 minutes ago you were telling me something entirely different." She then masterfully parodied Craig's intonation. "You're just fire, baby. You make me crazy. You're so hot." Michelle was shocked. Did she deserve this? To stand there and listen to all this nastiness? Turning around, she jumped out of the office and almost ran down the corridor, away from here. Judging by the rumble and noise, her husband ran after her, knocking everything in his path, but she managed to duck into the elevator and press the button before Craig caught up with her. She managed to see his confused face through the closing doors and could barely keep herself from sarcastically saying, "Button your pants, hero lover." It wasn't really funny at all. It was bravado bordering on despair. Somewhere in the depths of her soul, Michelle already understood that all her cozy familiar world had collapsed, shattered into shards. But in her heart, she could still not accept and understand what had happened. Craig had cheated on her, her beloved husband, whom she trusted with all her soul. Paula had betrayed her, her best friend, who had been by her side for so many years, with whom Michelle had shared her secrets and dreams. The elevator reached the first floor and stopped. Michelle flew out of the elevator and rushed past the dazed guard. Her mind flashed, "But he tried to stop me, so he knew what was going on in the office." Of course he knew. He knew there was no one left in the building but Craig and Paula. It's not that difficult to put two and two together. Leaping out into the street, Michelle, hesitating, still rushed around the corner of the building and lurked there. She suspected that Craig would run after her, and she didn't want to catch his eye. Her suspicions were confirmed. Soon she heard the sound of the door opening, a stomping sound and a loud voice. "Michelle! Michelle, where are you?" She pressed herself harder into the wall, trying to blend into the darkness. Her husband paced back and forth on the sidewalk for a while, trying to figure out which way Michelle had gone. That's when her cell phone vibrated. Michelle shuddered with surprise, covering herself with cold sweat. Craig's name was on the display. Such luck that the sound of the phone was muted. Craig called and called and called. Michelle stared at the phone screen, tears rolling down her cheeks. Finally, when her husband dialed her number once again, she couldn't stand it and dropped the call. Then sent the number to the blacklist without a tremor. The calls stopped. Craig paced back and forth on the street for a while longer, then, freaking out, went back to the office. I wonder if Paula is still there. What will he say to her? Michelle thought. Judging by the tone he was talking to her, he didn't care much for her. Oh, stop it. Am I making excuses for him? No matter how he feels about Paula, it doesn't change the fact that he cheated on me. There's no telling how long they've been seeing each other behind my back. What if this isn't their first date?" Michelle, glancing back now and then, hurriedly strode down the street, anxious to be as far away from the office as possible. She was wondering where to go. She couldn't go home. Thinking a little more, she typed Rachel's address into the taxi app. More precisely, it was now turning out to be the only one. While waiting for the cab, she dialed her so she wouldn't have it come down like snow on her head. "Rachel, are you home?" she asked. "Can I come over to your place now?" "What's wrong?" The woman was startled. "I'm not sure," Michelle sighed. "I'll come and tell you." Her friend met her at the door, looking pale and confused. "Michelle, what happened? Tell me. Did you quarrel with Craig?" "No quarrel." Michelle shook her head and wrapped her arms around her shoulders. He cheated on me." "Wow," Michelle muttered. "That's not all. Wow," Michelle grinned sadly. "Do you know with whom?" "With Paula." "Can you imagine? That's really wow. I came to the office and caught that sweet couple there." Rachel reacted strangely. She turned away, hiding her eyes and biting her lips in excitement. "Wait a minute." Michelle stared suspiciously at her friend. "Did you know about my husband and Paula?" Rachel nodded slightly. Michelle gasped in shock and indignation. "Knew? And kept silent? How could you? Traitor! I thought I could trust at least you. Turns out I have no more friends left at all. Not a single one." Michelle was almost crying now. Rachel put her hand palm forward as if defending herself. "Wait, don't jump to conclusions. Yes, I knew about it. But that doesn't mean I supported Paula or approved of her actions. On the contrary, I shamed her and tried to dissuade her." Michelle squirmed and shook her head. "How long has this been going on?" she whispered. "Oh, as I know, it just started today," Rachel quickly retorted. Michelle sighed. "Are you saying that now deliberately to comfort me?" "Don't, Rachel. It doesn't matter to me whether the cheating happened many times or just once. The main thing is that it happened at all. Even once is enough for me." Rachel was silent for a while, gathering her thoughts, and finally began to speak. "Paula has gone completely off the rails from envy of you. She really went crazy. She kept saying how unfair it was that some people got everything and others nothing. She was jealous of you when you met Craig, when you told her how handsome he was, when he gave you gifts and flowers. She often told me that Craig would soon leave you. She was sure that hot men like Craig need more bright femme fatale women, and you're too simple and uncomplicated for him. She called you a grey mouse, an ugly duckling. She said you don't deserve such a beautiful swan. And when Craig proposed to you and you showed us the engaging ring he gave you, she hated you." Michelle clenched her temples with her fingers. Her head was splitting from the new information. "How do you accept that your best friend hated you all these years?" "Why didn't you say anything to me?" she asked Rachel quietly. "Why did you let me warm a snake on my chest?" Rachel shrugged helplessly. "Frankly speaking, I hoped she would get over it and calm down. But sometimes envy makes a person lose themselves. I believed that Paula wasn't completely lost by nature. Yes, she was jealous, but she never showed it to you. I never thought she would set out to destroy your marriage." "And has she decided to destroy it?" "Yes. Today, when we were sitting in the restaurant and you felt sick and left, Paula immediately suspected you were pregnant. You called a cab and it was just the two of us. She drank the rest of the wine and then she just went crazy. She said all kinds of mean things about you. I tried to stop her. It was hard for me to listen to it," Rachel sobbed. "But she kept going on and on, saying how undeservedly lucky you are again. If you really are pregnant, Craig will love and care for you even more than before. Besides, his parents have long dreamed of grandchildren.
You mentioned it yourself. Anyway, Paula realised that, despite her predictions, Craig wasn't going to leave you."
Rachel shook her head.
"Then she remembered that Craig was in his office now and said to me that she needed to run an errand. Of course, I tried to talk her out of it, shamed her, reminded her of your long-standing friendship, that you didn't deserve such a mean attitude. She only smiled at me and left the restaurant. Michelle, I'm really sorry."
"I'm sorry too," Michelle muttered. "I wish I had seen her true face earlier. That scum who suddenly pretended to be my friend for so many years." Tears flowed down her cheeks again. Rachel embraced Michelle, pressed her against herself, and began to stroke her hair affectionately.
"Well, Michelle, don't cry. She's not worth a single tear."
"They're both worthless," Michelle sniffed. "Not Paula, not Craig."
"Tell me, are you really pregnant?"
Rachel asked.
Michelle nodded. "Yes, I took several tests, all positive. That's why I went to Craig's office to make him happy, to surprise him. And in the end, they surprised me."
"I mean, sure, come over. But are you all right?" Well, come on, calm down." Rachel shook her head. "Then you, in your position, should not be nervous. It's not good for the baby." "There won't be a baby," Michelle responded sluggishly. "I'm not going to have a child by a traitor." "And Craig still doesn't know?" Rachel asked. "And he won't find out. I'll terminate it and tell him nothing, and then I'll file for divorce."
"And no pity?"
With her palms pressed to her cheeks, Rachel looked at her friend in horror.
"It's still a human being."
"It's not a human being yet," Michelle objected stubbornly, trying not to think about the child inside her. She simply forbade herself to think about it, otherwise she might change her mind.
"And yet, please, don't make a hasty decision."
Rachel looked at her friend pleadingly. "This is a serious step. You don't know exactly what happened between Craig and Paula. Maybe it didn't even get to the main thing. They just made out a little, and that's all. And then you came and scared them away." Michelle shook her head, looking at Rachel with sincere surprise. "Treason is not only a physical act. The fact that Craig was ready to cheat on me with Paula, that he would have gone further if it hadn't been for my appearance, to me that's already treason. Treason comes first from the mind, do you understand?"
"No, but I honestly try to understand," Rachel admitted with a sigh. "And what if Craig asks for forgiveness? You won't forgive him?"
Michelle shook her head.
"Of course not.
He who betrays once will betray twice. I'll never be able to trust him again. Never will I be able to look at him with the same love and tenderness. I'll never forget what he did."
"Even if he truly repents?"
"Even if he truly repents," Michelle nodded.
"Otherwise, I just won't be able to.
I won't be able to get over myself and my pride."
"Oh dear," Rachel sighed. "I hope you know what you're doing, but I think you're making a huge mistake."
"Perhaps I am," Michelle nodded, "but I can't do it any other way. Otherwise, it won't be me any more." Rachel sighed again.
"So what are you going to do now?"
Michelle smiled uncertainly. "For starters, wait until tomorrow. The morning is wiser than the evening. You won't kick me out, will you? Can I stay at your place tonight?"
"Of course you can," Rachel nodded. "I'll make a bed for you on the couch. Are you going to have dinner?"
"No, thanks. I just want to take a shower and go to bed. After all this excitement, I can barely stand on my feet."
"Good. Then I'll get you a clean towel and a t-shirt to change into. You'll find a new, unpacked toothbrush in the bathroom cabinet."
"Thank you, Rachel." Michelle almost wept at such sincere care and support. "What would I do without you?" She stood under the hot shower for a long time, squeezing her eyes shut and exposing her face to the tight jets. The water flowed away with soapy foam and bad thoughts. It suddenly seemed to Michelle that nothing terrible had happened. Life was not over. So what if her husband cheated? So what if she's pregnant? She'll deal with both of those problems. She'll totally make it. She'll survive. Suddenly, she thought Rachel was calling her. She opened the bathroom door and wanted to ask again, but immediately realized her mistake. Rachel was talking to someone on the phone. Michelle wanted to close the door and continue her shower, but suddenly her friend clearly said Craig's name. "No, Craig, no, I tell you, this is not a good idea," she pronounced a little irritably. "Yes, Michelle is here, but she doesn't want to see you now. She's very much offended, you know." "Well, of course, I want you to reconcile. But you can't hurry in this business. You can only spoil everything. Michelle is tired, exhausted. She's going to bed." "What? Do you want to come tomorrow and talk to her? Please come. What time? Let's make it early. First thing in the morning, so she doesn't have time to go anywhere." "Okay, Craig, yeah. You're welcome. Bye." She ended the conversation and only now noticed Michelle standing in the doorway, wrapped in a towel. Her hair was wet, her eyes unbelieving, full of pain. "Why?" Michelle whispered. "Why did you tell him where I was, Rachel? I came to you on purpose, so he wouldn't find me. I trusted you so much. I hoped you'd support me. And you gave me up to him right away. Traitor." Rachel's face contorted with a grimace of pain. "Don't say that, Michelle, please. I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to? But you told him." Michelle grinned incredulously. "He guessed it himself that I had you. He called and asked me straight out. I just couldn't lie to him. But I didn't tell him anything myself." Michelle closed her eyes tiredly and leaned against the door jamb. "And about the pregnancy? Did you tell him about the pregnancy too?" Rachel hurriedly shook her head. "No, of course not. Not a word, not a hint, not even a half hint." "Well, thank you for that," Michelle exhaled. "What did he want?" "He wanted to come here right away, but I said it would be better to do it in the morning after you've rested." Michelle couldn't help but quip. "Wow, you're so thoughtful." Rachel covered her face with her palms and sobbed. "Forgive me, Michelle, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to give you away. It's just the way it happened. You know your husband. He knows how to make a conversation." "Yeah, he's a master of the conversation genre." Michelle shook her head. "And what are you going to do now?" Rachel asked timidly. "Will you talk to him?" "No," Michelle snorted. "I'll leave at once. I don't want him to catch me here." Rachel gasped. "You're leaving now? In the middle of the night? At least wait until morning." "Yeah, to get caught right away by Craig." Michelle grinned. "No, thank you. All the more reason for him to disobey you and come right away." "And where will you go?" Rachel asked in alarm. Michelle shook her head. "No, I'm sorry, I won't tell you that. I don't want you to accidentally tell Craig again." Her friend guiltily lowered her head. "But I really didn't mean it." Michelle nodded. "I believe you. That's why I want to make sure I don't do it again on purpose. Now, give me the hairdryer, please. I need to dry my hair, and I'll be on my way." Stepping out into the dark of night from her friend's house, Michelle froze, confused. What now? She could, of course, go to a hotel. There was enough money on her card, but for some reason, she didn't want to be in the comfort of someone else's walls. Taking a deep breath, Michelle decided to go to her mother. Now, then, she had to prepare herself for the unsolicited advice and for judgment. Her mother had always been overly strict with her and constantly criticized her, thinking that by doing so she was only making her better. Michelle would not have been surprised if her mum had blamed her, not Craig, for the cheating. So what? It is quite possible to say that it was necessary to hold the man tighter, to pay more attention to him, to please him, not to let herself go. And Michelle's fears were justified. She regretted her decision to come, almost the moment her foot crossed the threshold of her mother's apartment.
"Well, at last you've appeared,"
exclaimed her mother, waving her hands.
"And where the devil have you been all this time?"
What do you mean? Michelle was surprised. Have you been waiting for me?
Of course, I've been waiting for a long time, ever since my dear Craig called me and told me the news.
What news? Cautiously asked Michelle, a little confused. If her mother was aware of her son-in-law's infidelity, why was she calling him my dear Craig at the same time?
Such that you're not at home. You're wandering around in the middle of nowhere and not answering his calls,
said Mum judgmentally.
He's going crazy there, poor thing. He's exhausted with worries.
Michelle wrinkled her nose. Didn't poor Craig tell you the reason why I left home and don't want to come back?
He did, Mum nodded. And I want to tell you, dear, you're a complete fool.
Michelle was even taken aback by such a statement. Thank you, she mumbled, confused.
Don't be sarcastic. Really, you should thank your mother. Who else but me will tell you the truth?
What truth, Mum? What do you mean?
That men like your Craig are not to be found on the road,
Mum said solemnly.
And it's real stupidity to throw them away, just so you know.
Mum! Michelle widened her eyes in shock.
Actually, I caught him with Paula in a very unambiguous situation. So what?
Mum rested her hands on her sides as she continued to stare angrily at her daughter. Michelle couldn't believe her ears.
So, to you, what happened is normal? Not normal, but I don't see anything horrible or outrageous.
The mother's lips tightened.
Millions of women go through this kind of thing every day, but not every woman runs away from her husband because of his weakness, especially from such a husband who blows the dust off her.
Michelle felt like clasping her hands over her ears. What are you saying, Mum? Are you justifying Craig's vile act by calling it weakness?
Because it is weakness,
the woman raised her voice.
It was Paula who got him.
Yeah, and he's such an innocent little angel, nothing to do with it. Michelle shook her head. Mum, I don't believe you're telling me this. You, who, on the contrary, should be on my side in this situation, on your own daughter's side.
I am already on your side, her mother resented. Of course I wish you well, my dear, and I am very grieved to see you ruin your happy and solid marriage with your own hands. Do you think it is easy to live alone? I raised you on my own without a husband, and now you have such a husband. He cares not only about you, but also me, his mother-in-law. Every year he sends me to the sea, to the best hotels, to make sure I have a good vacation.
He bought you, Mum, Michelle laughed bitterly. Bought you with his gifts, these trips to the sea, flattering speeches. You're willing to turn a blind eye to his despicable deed because it is to your advantage to have such a son-in-law, huh? Mother was embarrassed, but only for a moment.
Yes, it is advantageous. So what? But I just want you to be happy, warm and prosperous.
I shouldn't have come here, said Michelle in despair. Indeed, I should have gone straight to the hotel.
Don't run away, her mother was frantic. Sleep at my place.
Yeah? And you're going to call your favourite son-in-law and tell him where I am?
It's for your own good, the mother urged.
Mother, exclaimed Michelle, if you call Craig, I will never, never speak to you again. Do you understand? You're going to lose me forever. You know that.
What a mad woman,
Mum said, confused. It was evident that she was more than a little frightened by Michelle's threat. Swear you won't call him, then I'll stay, Michelle demanded.
You're crazy, Mother whispered and added, Yes, I won't. I won't call him, I swear."
From the excitement of the day, Michelle fell asleep the second her head touched the pillow. Sleep was an escape from the nightmare she had to face in real life. But unfortunately, when she opened her eyes the next morning, she realized that the nightmare had not disappeared. There were voices coming from the living room. Mum's, and no, it wasn't Craig's voice, but it was the voice of his mother. Michelle pulled the blanket up to her eyes and mentally groaned. What was she going to do now? She couldn't hide from her in the bedroom, and there was no other way out. She didn't want to show her mother-in-law the state she woke up in, shaggy and in a crumpled t-shirt with a swollen face from yesterday's sobbing, unwashed, no makeup. But there was nothing to do. Smoothing her hair with her hands, Michelle inwardly gathered herself and left the bathroom.
"Michelle, daughter!" squawked the mother-in-law, seeing her.
"Good morning," Michelle muttered and glanced expressively at her mother. "I asked you yesterday in a human way." Her mother made a surprised face and naively rounded her eyes.
"And what about me? I didn't do anything. You asked me not to tell Craig that I had you, and I didn't. But then I got a call from Gladys, and I couldn't keep it from her."
"Oh, I see," Michelle said irritably and crossed her arms over her chest. "So, what did you want?" The mother shifted her affectionate gaze to Michelle's mum. The mother-in-law shifted her affectionate gaze to Michelle's mum. "Helen, would you mind leaving Michelle and me alone?"
Yes, I'll go and make tea for all of us,"
Michelle's mother said, jumping up from the sofa.
"If anything, girls, I'm in the kitchen. Call me."
And she dashed off. "Sit down, Michelle." Mother-in-law nodded at the vacated place on the sofa. "Let's talk as woman to woman." Michelle sat down on the edge of the sofa and with difficulty suppressed the impulse to fold her hands in her lap like a model schoolgirl. "I know," her mother-in-law began, "that Craig has done a mean thing to you. I understand the pain you're feeling right now, but believe me, he himself is suffering, tormented, unable to find a place for himself." "Oh, poor little thing." Michelle couldn't resist being sarcastic. "I'm serious," Gladys nodded. "He's terribly sorry you saw all that yesterday." "You mean he regrets what I saw, not what he did?" Michelle grinned. Her mother-in-law gently covered her hand with her slender, well-groomed one, with long, beautiful fingers, studded with rings, with an exquisite manicure and a stylish bracelet around her wrist. "Michelle, you're an adult girl now. Let's face reality. Men cheat all the time." Michelle jerked as if from a slap. "Not true," she exclaimed. "It's true." Her mother-in-law stroked her hand and spoke in such an affectionate tone as if she were talking to a mentally ill person. "It's true."
"That's an excuse for husbands who cheat on their wives and make them put up with it,"
Michelle objected strenuously.
"And in fact, if you're not like that, if you love your woman, there's no way you'll cheat. You're just squeamish to another woman."
Gladys shook her head. "Craig loves you. He loves you very much.
And from this great love, he got into my best friend's underpants." "It's all your friend's fault. She's got my boy wrapped around her, seducing him. He's only human. He gave in to a momentary weakness." "Man is not an animal," Michelle retorted. "He can and should fight against such weaknesses. And now what has happened is what has happened. There's no turning back."
"And what are you going to do?" cautiously inquired the mother-in-law. "I'll file for divorce," Michelle replied confidently.
Gladys gasped and turned pale.
"Divorce? For such a small thing?"
Michelle clasped her hands together and shook her head.
"For me, it's not a small thing. It's betrayal. I'll never forget it." "Dear," Gladys said softly, "you are still too young, so you judge everything so categorically. You see only black and white in the world. But in fact, not everything is so unambiguous. Believe me, the main thing in a man is not fidelity, but the fact that in the end he returns only to you, despite all his hobbies."
"What are you talking about?" Michelle stretched out, shocked. "To accept him whenever he comes back from another hobby? It's impossible."
"It's possible," Gladys nodded sadly. "I could do it, and you will be able to." Michelle looked at her mother-in-law, not believing her ears.
"Are you saying that—"
"Yes," the woman nodded again, hiding the sadness in her eyes. "Craig's father has been cheating on me all the years of our marriage."
"And you tolerate? Don't leave him. I don't understand."
"What is there to understand, daughter? It's not easy to go nowhere when you're used to living in luxury. I've never worked a day in my life. My husband spoils me, dresses me up like a doll, buys me jewellery, takes me shopping in France and Italy. He takes care of me and our children, provides us with more than just a decent, luxurious existence. I do not worry with him about a piece of daily bread. With him, I am sure of tomorrow, stability and peace of mind." "Isn't the price too high for this so-called stability?" Michelle questioned. "You're paying for it with your own humiliation." "I know for a fact that he loves me," replied Gladys. "Good love?" Michelle shook her head ironically. "Yes, love," repeated her mother-in-law firmly. "It's just that he, like any man, needs a little adrenaline, fresh impressions." "No, I'm sorry," Michelle said slowly. I just can't. Won't be able to pretend like nothing happened. You can do it, but I can't. Craig's treason will always stand between us, and it probably won't be the only one, from what you say about the nature of men. There are no men in the world who are faithful to one single woman. The mother-in-law was clearly getting angry. That's utopia. Well, then I'm a naive idealist. But I only want a relationship where a man is faithful to me alone. I need either everything or nothing. Michelle stood up from the couch, making it clear that the conversation was over. "Stupid girl," her mother-in-law said with annoyance. "Maybe stupid, but I don't want to live with a traitor, and I won't." Michelle shrugged her shoulders. "And," added mentally, "and I won't have a child with him." She was sure that if Craig and his family had found out she was pregnant, she would have never been allowed to leave. Rather, Craig would tie her hand and foot and lock her in the house, but he wouldn't give her a divorce. So, it meant she'd done the right thing by not telling anyone about the pregnancy, not even her own mother. But unless Rachel... No, Michelle trusted that her friend wouldn't blab. "Michelle, Gladys, let's go and have tea." Her mother's curious face peeked through the door. Michelle silently went into the bathroom. "What's going on?" her mother whispered, stunned. "Oh, Helen, your daughter is some kind of stubborn donkey, not a wise woman," pronounced the mother-in-law, irritated, and also got up from the sofa. "I won't have tea, thank you, I must be off." And she hurriedly left the room. When Michelle took a shower, she began to pack. Her mother became worried. "Where are you going?" "I have to go on an errand," Michelle replied evasively, not wanting to tell her mother that she intended to visit the women's clinic. "What errand?" Mum didn't believe her. "What errand can you have now, except how to make up with your husband and return home to the family?" "Mum, I'll handle it myself," Michelle softly but adamantly retorted. "I can't stand it if you also start lecturing me on the topic. All men cheat. Women must be lenient to their little weaknesses." "Oh, Michelle, what a fool you are." Mother shook her head sadly. "You'll ruin your whole life with your own hands, and you'll regret it later." "Perhaps I will," Michelle did not argue, "but I can't do otherwise." For several years now, she had been seeing an excellent doctor who counselled her and gave her advice about her planned pregnancy. The clinic was private, and the quality of the services provided was top-notch. True, Craig grumbled that a male gynecologist was a terrible choice, but Dr. Ben Hogue really was an excellent specialist, so her husband had to put up with it. Michelle decided to go to this particular doctor. He knew her well and could give really valuable advice on how and when to get rid of her problem. Michelle unconsciously put her palm to her belly again and again, as if trying to feel the new life that had been born there, but of course the term was still too little. Maybe I should keep the baby after all. From time to time, the thought flashed in her head, but Michelle immediately reminded herself that very soon she would be divorced and left alone, and being a single mother was not so easy. Besides, the child would always remind her of her husband's betrayal. Michelle was sure of it. No, she just can't stand it. So it is necessary to solve that problem as soon as possible and forget about everything that happened. She won't be lost. She'll get a divorce, find a job, rent an apartment. She will live perfectly well without Craig. Without putting the matter off, she called and scheduled an appointment with Dr. Hogue. Fortunately, he could see her today. The closer she got to the clinic, the more nervous she became. Her hands grew cold, her knees shook, and her mouth became dry. "Everything will be all right," Michelle whispered quietly under her breath. "I'm doing everything right." But this self-talk helped little. As she approached Dr. Hogue's office, Michelle grew more afraid. There were happy pregnant women with shining faces, and she felt like a traitor because she didn't want to keep her baby. As she reached the office, she knocked with a shaky hand. "Come in," came Dr. Hogue's voice from inside. Michelle pushed open the door, stepped into the office and gasped. "Craig?" "Well, hello, my dear wife," said her husband, chuckling and approaching her. Michelle looked at him confused. How had he come here? How did he know she was coming? "You know," Craig smiled innocently, "I decided to attend your first ultrasound, to admire our future baby." Michelle was literally at a loss for words. "You don't mind, do you?" intervened Dr. Hogue, who was sitting at the table. "Actually, it is not uncommon for husbands to come to the ultrasound with their wives. It even brings the spouses closer together. Your husband decided to surprise you by coming." Obviously, the doctor knew nothing about the conflict between them, just as he didn't know that Michelle was hiding her pregnancy from Craig. "Excuse me," she said, coming to her senses. "Can my husband and I step outside for 5 minutes? I need to say something to him in private." "Why go out? You can talk in my office," the doctor kindly offered. "Meanwhile, I'll get some test results for a patient of mine. I'll be back soon and we can continue." "Thank you, doctor." Craig nodded gratefully. Michelle clenched her fists imperceptibly, angry either at her husband or at herself for underestimating his perfidy. Or maybe at Dr. Hogue in general. The doctor, smiling good-natured at them both, left the office. "How did you guess I was here?" Michelle asked. Craig shrugged. "Elementary, you found out about the pregnancy, and sooner or later you had to show up at your doctor's office. I called the clinic and checked your appointment time. As your husband, I'm well known here, so they didn't hide it." "And the pregnancy? How did you know about the pregnancy?" Michelle asked quietly, thinking frantically about who could have told him. Could it be Rachel? But she promised to keep quiet. Craig laughed softly. "You scattered positive pregnancy tests all over the bathroom. Honey, if you knew how happy I was when I saw them. We finally did it." He tried to stroke her cheek, but Michelle recoiled sharply. "Don't call me honey and don't touch me." Craig shook his head. "Still not calmed down? I thought a new day would bring you to your senses. Michelle, darling, stop sulking. We can't fight any more. We're going to have a baby soon. We must take care of each other and love each other for the sake of our future son." Michelle felt nauseous, either from his words or due to toxicosis.
"We won't take care of or love each other, Craig," she said. "And there won't be any child either." Her husband's face changed.
"What are you saying?"
"What you heard. I came to schedule an appointment to terminate it. Just so you know."
"Don't you dare even talk about it."
"Or what?" Michelle looked into his eyes, burning with anger.
"Or you'll regret it."
He squinted unkindly. "And what are you going to do to me?" She crossed her arms over her chest. "You have no right to forbid me."
"Yes, I do," he growled. "This is my child too, and I won't let you get rid of him. My family needs an heir, and there's only one heir of my family, and he's in your belly."
Michelle instinctively covered her belly with her hands. "What if it's a girl?" Craig shook his head stubbornly.
"It can't be a girl. I'm a real man. I only father boys. If you're pregnant with a girl, then it's definitely not mine. And you've conceived with someone else."
"You're not normal at all," Michelle said in fear, backing towards the door. She had never seen her husband like this.
"It's completely unscientific."
"We'll find out." Craig grinned predatorily, then suddenly grabbed his wife's arm sharply, not allowing her to escape.
"Now we'll wait for this nice doctor, Dr. Hogue, to whom you are always making eyes and smiling. We'll do an ultrasound and find out everything."
"I'm making eyes at him." Michelle was indignant.
"Don't put that on me.
You're the one who cheated on me. I'll divorce you."
"Just try it," Craig growled. "You'll regret it very much. You're my woman and you're carrying my son, and I'm not used to parting with what's mine. Besides, you can't manage without me anyway. I've blocked your bank card. You don't work, my dear. How are you going to live if you divorce me? You won't even have enough money to pay the bill at this clinic."
At that moment, the door of the office was ajar, and the returning doctor appeared on the threshold.
"Well, have you had your talk?" he asked affably. "We can proceed to the ultrasound."
Suddenly, Michelle felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. With an involuntary gasp, she bent in half. It felt as if she had been pierced from the inside. Horrified, she saw a red stain spreading on her legs. Fortunately, Dr. Hogue reacted quickly. He sprang to Michelle in one leap, picking her up and preventing her from falling. He then swung the door open and shouted into the corridor, "Stretcher! Urgent! Pregnant patient bleeding!" The pain didn't subside. It only intensified. Then Michelle felt herself falling into the saving darkness. She woke up in a hospital room with an IV in her hand. Her palm automatically lay on her belly, as if checking if the baby were there. But what could be felt at such an early term? Michelle didn't know if she was still pregnant. She assessed how she felt. Nothing else seemed to hurt, but maybe it was the effect of the anesthetic. Suddenly she felt petrified at the thought that she might have lost the baby. How strange! Now, when the baby was in danger, she realized she didn't want to lose him. Tears came to her eyes, her throat spasmed, and Michelle sobbed loudly. Hearing this, a nurse appeared from somewhere in the corner of the room. "Have you come to your senses? How are you feeling?" "How's my baby?" Michelle asked hoarsely, not recognizing her own voice. The nurse glanced toward the door. "I'll call Dr. Hogue. He will explain everything. He asked me to call him when you wake up." Michelle went cold. Apparently there was trouble with the child after all. If there was nothing wrong with the pregnancy, no one would need to be so secretive. She clenched her teeth, struggling to keep from crying out loud. Had she really lost her baby? The door of the ward opened noiselessly, and Dr. Hogue approached the bed quickly.
"How are you, Michelle?" he asked.
"The child," she whispered, looking at him with unhappy eyes. "Is my baby—"
"You have a threat of miscarriage,"
the doctor informed her with a concerned frown. But Michelle grasped the phrase like a drowning person grasps at straws. "A threat? But not a miscarriage itself?" Is the child alive?
Yes, but I don't want to give you false hope. The situation is quite complicated, and I have to warn you, to save your pregnancy, you will have to stay in the hospital. I can't discharge you in this condition. The bleeding may resume at any moment.
I agree,
Michelle nodded hurriedly. It was the best option for her. She wasn't going back home to Craig, and the hospital was an opportunity to be alone and think about everything that had happened. When she thought of Craig, she frowned. And my husband? Is he still here? No. I told him that while you were sleeping, and he went out to get something to eat. Michelle sharply grabbed the doctor's arm, causing him to wince in pain. Dr. Hogue, I have a huge favour to ask of you. Promise me you'll fulfill it. He was surprised, but cautiously replied, It depends on what you ask of me. Michelle folded her arms in front of her chest in a prayerful gesture. Please, tell my husband that I've lost the baby. Dr. Hogue's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. What? Please, Michelle begged again. I want him to think I'm not pregnant anymore. You are my only hope. Please do this for me, and not just say it in words. If you could show him some kind of certificate, too? Actually, I have no right to. This is deceit and abuse of office. Dr. Hogue started, but noticing Michelle's tears, he hastily added, Maybe you can tell me what happened to you. Why have you decided on this deception? If your reasons seem convincing, I may consider your request. Michelle sniffed and nodded. All right, I'll tell you everything as it is, and you decide what to do. Having heard Michelle's unhappy story, Dr. Hogue remained silent for a long time. Understand me, she said worriedly. I don't want to spend my life with a man who will cheat on me, and he will. In their family it's not considered shameful, and women obediently tolerate it because men provide for them, and I don't want to be like them. And Craig will never let me go if he finds out I'm pregnant. Having a child will slow down the divorce process. I'm afraid, she held under her breath. I'm afraid he might just take the baby away from me. He has money, connections. So you're determined to keep the pregnancy? Clarified Dr. Hogue. Michelle nodded. Yes, of course. If I lost the baby, everything would be much easier. It would untie my hands. I could divorce faster. And I wanted to. I really wanted to get rid of him. But now, when I am in danger of losing him, I suddenly realized that I couldn't let that happen. This is my baby, and he or she deserves to be born. Michelle pressed her hands to her chest pleadingly. Please, Dr. Hogue, if you don't help me, then no one can. I'm just trapped. I have no support at all. At that instant, there was a knock on the door of the ward. It swung open impatiently, and Michelle was startled to see Craig. Are you awake? He asked demandingly. How are you feeling? Michelle froze fearfully, shifting her gaze from Craig to Dr. Hogue. Your wife, the doctor began. You see, there's such a thing. What happened? Craig rushed to him. She's all right, isn't she? Michelle tensed, waiting for the answer on which her fate depended. Your wife is fine, Dr. Hogue replied slowly. Inside, Michelle sank with disappointment. So the doctor had decided not to help her. Well, he had every right to do so. Craig glowed. Fine. When can I take her home? I'm not going home with you, she said quickly, but Craig made fearful eyes and hissed, Shut up! You'll do as I say. The doctor, who was watching this scene, coughed and said, Craig Jennings, I haven't finished. Your wife is relatively well, but the child, unfortunately, the pregnancy could not be saved. Craig's eyebrows went up. What did you say? Unfortunately, your wife lost the child. Dr. Hogue repeated firmly. You viper! Craig shifted his gaze to Michelle, and she froze with horror. Never before had she seen Craig so enraged. Never had he spoken such harsh words to her. Never insulted her. We dreamed of a child for so many years, and you lost it. What are you good for, you idiot? Can't you even take care of your pregnancy?
He took a swing, as if he was going to hit her. Craig had never hit Michelle before, and so she was so confused that she didn't even think to close her eyes. But fortunately, her husband's hand was intercepted by Dr. Hogue with an iron grip. "What do you allow yourself?" he hissed. "How do you talk to a woman? Savage! Immediately get out of the ward and do not dare to bother the patient anymore. She needs rest. If you don't leave, I'll call security and they'll kick you out of here." Apparently, there was something in the doctor's look that Craig preferred to believe. As soon as the door closed behind him, Michelle cried from the stress she had experienced. "Come on, calm down, Michelle," the doctor said, handing her a pack of tissues. "It's all behind you. I won't let that beast hurt you." "Thank you," Michelle said with difficulty through her sobs. "You've helped me out so much." "I'll keep helping you. I'll get you the certificate you need, and then I'll help you start a new life. Find a place to live and some work so you don't have to depend on him. I promise your husband won't find out you're pregnant." 5 years later. It was sunny, warm and cosy in the park. Michelle and Rachel sat at a table at a summer cafe, enjoying ice cream, chatting merrily and watching the children. Rachel's son and Michelle's daughter were jumping on the trampoline, squealing merrily. "Can you imagine?" Rachel suddenly remembered. "I saw Paula yesterday." "No way!" Michelle was surprised. The name of a former friend pricked her heart with an unpleasant memory. "And how is she?" "To be honest, it's a pity to look at her. She never got married, has no children. She changed men, but eventually no one wanted her. She lives alone, leads a disorderly life, drinks a lot, earns a few odd jobs." Michelle shrugged. "Well, it's nobody's fault. I don't want to gloat and say that she deserved it all, but what goes around comes around. She wanted to deprive me of all happiness, my husband, a prosperous life, and ended up in the pit herself." "Yes, I guess you're right," Rachel nodded. "She's always been spiteful and envious. I see Craig a lot too, by the way." When Michelle heard her ex-husband's name, she stared questioningly at her friend. "Where?" "His new mistress is our neighbour. He often visits her at lunchtime." Michelle shook her head. "Craig hasn't changed a bit. His poor wife." Rachel sighed, but Michelle objected. "Not poor at all. I'm sure she knew what she was getting into. This is the fate of all women of their family, to endure cheating husbands and receive money and gifts from them in return, and also to bear children." "He seems to have 2 of them already," Rachel remembered. 3, Michelle thought, if you count Mary. Mary was her daughter's name, but Craig didn't know she existed, just as Mary herself had no idea who her birth father was. She was used to calling an entirely different person Daddy. "Don't you regret leaving him then?" her friend asked. "Of course not," Michelle smiled. "Only after divorcing Craig did I realize what it means to be truly loved." "Mummy, Daddy's here," came Mary's sonorous voice from the trampoline. Michelle shifted her gaze there and saw Ben cheerfully tossing their squealing daughter up and catching her. "I have to go, Rachel." She smiled affectionately at her best friend. "Husband's waiting." Looking, as Michelle carefully stood up from the table, supporting her 7 months pregnant belly, Rachel sighed softly. "You're a lucky girl, Michelle. Your husband dotes on you, blows the dust off. You have a good job, a beautiful daughter growing up, and soon there will be a son." "It's all thanks to him." Michelle laughed and looked at her husband. "A guardian angel named Ben. More precisely, Dr. Hogue. My doctor, who became my saviour, later a faithful friend, and then a lover and husband. Only with him did I realise what it is when you are respected and appreciated, and not just thoughtlessly showered with gifts to shut your mouth. Loving one person is enough, and you don't need anyone else in the whole world." Watching the departing family, Rachel was touched and smiled. The husband gently supported his pregnant wife under his arm, and with his other hand he held Mary's hand firmly. Seeing this family, if of course not counting the 4th member who was still in his mother's belly, Rachel thought that her friend truly deserved this happiness.